All right, Bingers, settle in. Another week, another journey into the truly fascinating. Here on The Binge, we cut through the noise, drilling down into subjects that demand our full attention. This episode, prepare yourselves as we peel back the layers on some of the most whispered about government secrets and alleged experiments. We'll be peering into the legendary, terrifying whispers of the Philadelphia experiment, exploring the alleged temporal journeys of Project Pegasus, and unearthing the chilling real-life horrors of MK Ultra. Prepare yourself for a deep dive you won't easily pull away from. Trust me, once we begin, you'll be completely immersed.
It's the Binge Podcast where everything's a blast. It's the Binge Podcast. Come join us fast.
It's 1943. World War II is raging, a meat grinder of steel and blood. The Allied forces are desperate for any edge, anything that can turn the tide against the Axis powers. And in the murky depths of classified naval research, a truly audacious, terrifying idea allegedly took root. What if you could make a ship disappear? Not just from enemy sight, but from their radar. Complete invisibility. A phantom menace that could strike without warning. The concept itself is a beautiful, chilling piece of military ambition to cheat the very fabric of reality, to manipulate the very forces of the universe, to gain an advantage in a goddamn global slaughter. They called it, innocently enough, Project Rainbow. What they allegedly created was something far more colorful. And by colorful, I mean covered in the pulverized remains of screaming sailors twisted across the dimensions. The theoretical underpinning for this impossible feat allegedly drew from the very frontiers of physics, from the unfinished work of Albert Einstein's unified field theory. This wasn't just some crackpot idea. This was supposedly an attempt to manipulate electromagnetism at a fundamental level, to bend light and radar waves around a vessel, rendering it utterly unseen. The setting, Philadelphia Naval Shipyard. The star of this grim ballet, the USS Eldridge, a destroyer escort. The premise seemed deceptively simple to the scientists, probably chain-smoking, fueled by coffee and desperation, convinced they were on the verge of a breakthrough that would win the goddamn war. They probably thought, what's the worst that could happen? A few blown fuses, maybe a minor glow, a bit of static. Oh, you sweet summer children of science, you had no goddamn idea the Pandora's box you were supposedly about to crack open. The alleged experiment itself sounds like a deranged dream sequence penned by a madman. The colossal pulse generators humming with unimaginable power were supposedly switched on. Witnesses described the air around the ship shimmering, vibrating. Then the USS Eldridge was enveloped in a strange greenish fog, an ethereal shroud. Then, according to the legend, it vanished. Not just from radar, but physically. One moment, the USS Eldridge was there, bobbing innocently in the water. The next, it was gone. Just poof. Like a bad magic trick performed by an angry, chaotic god. But that's not even the truly mindfuck part. The Eldridge supposedly reappeared moments later, miles away in Norfolk, Virginia, then, just as suddenly, popped back to Philadelphia. Teleportation. A casual side effect of making a ship invisible. But when it materialized, the ship and its crew were apparently a grotesque testament to unchecked scientific hubris, a living horror show of what happens when you mess with forces you don't comprehend. Some sailors were allegedly fused to the ship's metal bulkheads, their bodies literally melded into the steel, arms sticking out of walls, torsos embedded in the deck, flesh becoming part of the very structure of the ship. A man reportedly screamed from inside the ship's hull, his form half solid, half ghost, a perpetual agony echoing through the metal. And then there are the whispers of those who claim to have experienced something even stranger, time travel. One particular account from a man who later came forward painted a picture of pure, unadulterated temporal horror. He claimed that during the invisibility experiment, he was thrown through time. He reportedly found himself disoriented, terrified, flung decades into the future, seeing things that didn't yet exist in 1943. He described witnessing future technologies, experiencing moments that hadn't happened yet, a mind-shattering glimpse of reality he wasn't supposed to see. This temporal displacement wasn't a controlled journey, it was a violent, random snatching, a horrific byproduct of the Eldridge's desperate dance with reality. He saw a glimpse of a future war, images of technologies so advanced they bordered on magic, and the absolutely crushing loneliness of being ripped from your own timeline. Imagine surviving that hell only to have your own body betray you, flickering in and out of existence, or worse, becoming unstuck in time, forced to witness epochs you weren't meant to inhabit. What a goddamn nightmare. Others, the lucky ones, who weren't turned into a grotesque piece of naval architecture or spat out into a terrifying future, were reportedly driven stark raving mad. They suffered from severe mental illnesses, came undone, and just wandered around like zombies, babbling about strange dimensions and shifting realities. Some were said to have become invisible themselves, disappearing and reappearing at random, their molecules apparently out of sync with reality. The very essence of their being was shattered, victims of a scientific ambition that laughed in the face of human limits. The aftermath, if you believe the story, was a meticulous, brutal cover-up. The surviving crew members were debriefed, silenced, declared insane, or simply disappeared into the anonymity of military files. All records vanished, scrubbed clean. The USS Eldridge was supposedly hastily decommissioned, a phantom ship spirited away to hide its horrific secrets. Nothing to see here, folks. Just a perfectly normal destroyer escort that definitely didn't accidentally fold space and time and turn its crew into human furniture and temporal tourists. The official stance, of course, is that it's all hogwash, a sci-fi fantasy that got out of hand, perpetuated by hoaxers and conspiracy theorists. They'll tell you the ship was never even in Philadelphia at the time, that the whole thing was a mix-up with degaussing experiments and a vivid imagination. But here's the unsettling beauty of it all. Whether it's literal truth or utter fiction, the Philadelphia experiment story persists. Why? Because it taps into our deepest fears and our most audacious hopes. It's the ultimate cautionary tale of scientific ambition running wild, of humanity playing God and getting slapped in the face by the very universe. It speaks to the terrifying possibility of hidden government experiments, of unseen horrors lurking in the shadows of classified projects, of a reality far stronger and more dangerous than we can possibly comprehend. And honestly, isn't it more compelling to imagine a reality where the military accidentally turns sailors into ghosts, teleportation devices, and unwilling time travelers than just another boring naval exercise? It's a story that lives in the liminal space between fact and nightmare, forever whispered in hushed tones, a chilling reminder that sometimes the most captivating truths are the ones we desperately want to believe, even if they're a goddamn lie. And sometimes the dark humor comes from imagining the poor bastard who had to fill out that accident report. Cause of death: spontaneous molecular integration with ship's hull, compounded by temporal displacement. Recommendation: do not make more ships invisible. Seriously. We mean it this time. And please, for the love of God, keep Einstein away from naval vessels. What a goddamn legend. Project Pegasus, the Chrononaut Kids, and the government's time-traveling fuck-up. It's the late 1960s, early 70s. While America is grappling with Vietnam, hippies, and disco, a truly horrifying period in itself, some truly advanced thinkers in the bowels of the U.S. government were allegedly cooking up something far stranger. Forget boring old spies. They were supposedly dabbling in time travel and teleportation. And here's the kicker. For their highly sensitive, incredibly dangerous experiment, they weren't recruiting hardened soldiers or brilliant scientists. Oh no, they were recruiting kids. Small, impressionable, presumably expendable children. because apparently using children for experimental reality-bending physics was considered perfectly sound strategy. What the hell was going through their minds? The primary source for this utterly bonkers narrative is a man named Andrew Basiago. He claims that from 1968 to 1972, as a boy, he was part of a secret DARPA program called Project Pegasus. The goal? To pioneer time travel and teleportation chambers based on the alleged forgotten works of Nikola Tesla and the ever-present, ever-mysterious Albert Einstein. They supposedly had a chronovisor, a device that could project holographic images of past and future events. Basically, a really fancy, extremely illegal time TV allowed them to spy on history without ever leaving the lab. And then the ultimate prize: jump rooms that allowed physical travel through the very fabric of space and time. It sounds like a Saturday morning cartoon written by a paranoid schizophrenic, but Basiago tells it with the conviction of a man who's seen some shit, a man whose memories are burned into his very soul. So, what did these alleged child chrononauts actually do? The stories are wild, folks, a carnival of temporal displacement and impossible journeys. Basiago claims he, along with other children, was repeatedly teleported to distant locations, sometimes within their own time, sometimes through history. He asserts he visited Gettysburg multiple times, not just observing, but reportedly walking amongst the ghostly echoes of the dead, witnessing Abraham Lincoln deliver his famous address. Imagine that. A bunch of kids in ill-fitting fatigues just chilling at the bloodiest battle of the Civil War, trying not to accidentally step on a dead soldier or get trampled by a phantom horse, all while waiting for Honest Abe to finish his speech, probably sweating bullets. He also claims he witnessed the Lincoln assassination from outside Ford's Theater, a front row seat to one of America's greatest tragedies. What a morbid, emotionally scarring field trip for a child. But it gets even better, or perhaps even more unsettlingly bizarre. He alleges he was teleported to Mars and walked around on the surface in some kind of early stage spacesuit, breathing Martian air that tasted like dust and eternity. Yes, you heard that right. Not just time travel, but interplanetary time travel. Apparently, the government needed child explorers because they were less likely to freak out during the terrifying process, or perhaps their smaller forms were more suitable for unstable temporal shifts through the jump rooms. The ethical implications of sending kids on these potentially brain-frying, reality-warping trips are, to put it mildly, terrifying beyond all comprehension. You're not just risking a scraped knee, you're risking being fused to a wall in 1863, dissolving into a pile of sentient dust, or simply losing your mind in the vast cold emptiness of a different planet. And all for national security, of course, because what's a few traumatized children in the grand scheme of geopolitical advantage? And here's where the story takes a truly mind-bending turn, blurring the lines between conspiracy theory and an uncomfortably compelling alternate history. Basiago claims that amongst the other child participants in Project Pegasus were none other than Barack Obama, allegedly under the name Barry Soetoro at the time, and Donald Rumsfeld. Yes, that Donald Rumsfeld, who would later become Secretary of Defense, a man whose adult life seemed to embody a kind of detached, almost alien logic. Imagine these future political titans as scrawny, bewildered kids, inadvertently time-traveling together, perhaps sharing a terrified glance as a holographic dinosaur flickered into existence in their chronovisor room, or bumping into each other on a simulated Martian landscape. George H.W. Bush is also floated as a potential participant, weaving the fabric of the American political elite into this unbelievably strange tapestry. It's the ultimate conspiratorial casting coup. The future leaders of the free world secretly groomed in a time-traveling black ops program as literal children, exposed to untold horrors and impossible realities. It makes you wonder what kind of fucked up shit they really saw that shaped their adult policies. Did Rumsfeld's infamous penchant for known unknowns and unknown unknowns come from a particularly disorienting trip to the Cretaceous period? Did Obama's calm, almost unflappable demeanor stem from having survived a jump into a truly chaotic, terrifying future? The mind reels. The entire affair allegedly took place in top-secret facilities deep underground, hidden from public scrutiny, overseen by shadowy military and intelligence figures whose identities remain veiled. When Basiago finally came forward with his story years later, risking everything to share his truth, he was predictably dismissed as a delusional fantasist, a crackpot with too much time on his hands. The government's stance, naturally, is that none of this ever happened. They'll tell you Basiago is a liar, that his claims are unsubstantiated, a product of a vivid imagination or worse, and that the only thing getting teleported was his credibility straight into the dumpster fire of internet conspiracy theories. But here's the insidious allure of Project Pegasus. Whether it's literal truth or a grand elaborate delusion, the story persists. Why? Because it taps into our deepest suspicions about unchecked government power, about the truly insane lengths that some might go to for a military or technological advantage, and about the terrifying yet tantalizing possibility that the reality we perceive is just a tiny, carefully curated sliver of what's actually happening behind the curtain. It's the ultimate cautionary tale of scientific ambition running wild, of humanity playing God with children's minds and getting a truly bizarre, potentially soul-crushing bill for it. It's a story that lives in the liminal spaces between fact and nightmare, forever whispered in hushed tones around the digital campfire, a chilling reminder that sometimes the most captivating truths are the ones we desperately want to believe, even if they're a goddamn lie. And the sheer unsettling comedy comes from picturing the future Secretary of Defense as a bewildered 10-year-old accidentally teleporting into a broom closet in 1999, muttering about known knowns and unknown knowns to a very confused janitor. What a goddamn reality-bending nightmare. And what a world it would be if this wild, beautiful, terrifying story were actually true. MK Ultra, the CIA's psychedelic descent into madness. It's the height of the Cold War, the 1950s. The world is gripped by a delicious, pervasive paranoia. The Soviets, those sneaky bastards, are reportedly perfecting mind control, turning ordinary citizens into Manchurian candidates ready to assassinate presidents with a whispered trigger word. Or, so the story went. In the halls of the CIA, fear blossomed into a truly twisted ambition. If they can do it, we damn well better be able to do it too. Or, even better, we should figure out how to unmind control people. And how do you fight hypothetical mind control? With real, experimental, utterly reckless mind control, apparently. This was the genius of MK Ultra. It wasn't some minor side project, it was a vast, sprawling octopus of an operation, a multi-million-dollar program that ran for at least 2 decades, from the early 1950s into the 70s. Its stated goal was simple enough: figure out how to control the human mind, how to make people spill secrets against their will, how to erase memories, how to program assassins, how to cultivate absolute loyalty, or sow utter confusion. The methods? Well, that's where things got truly exquisitely fucked up. They basically threw every goddamn thing at the wall to see what stuck to the human psyche. Imagine the dimly lit, smoke-filled rooms where these brilliant, misguided bastards cooked up their schemes. The human brain was their petri dish, and ethical considerations were apparently shoved into a locked filing cabinet and set on fire. They experimented with LSD, not just on willing participants who were often not fully informed, bless their trusting hearts, but on unwitting citizens, prostitutes, prisoners, mental patients, even regular Joes at parties, dosed without consent, just to see what would happen. Let's see if this guy hallucinates his ass off and then thinks he's a chicken. For science. The sheer casual cruelty of it is breathtaking. It's like a bad acid trip funded by your tax dollars. But it wasn't just LSD. Oh no, that was just the appetizer. They experimented with a veritable smorgasbord of chemical compounds: mescaline, heroin, barbiturates, psilocybin, scopolamine, a truth serum that mostly just made people delirious, and drugs that were just one tool in their mad scientist kit. They dabbled in hypnosis, trying to program people to commit acts they'd never remember. They tried sensory deprivation, locking people in silent, dark rooms for weeks, pushing them to the brink of madness just to see if their minds would break and become pliable. They explored electroshock therapy, not for treatment, but for deprogramming and reprogramming. And when all else failed, there was always good old-fashioned psychological torture, pushing subjects to their absolute breaking point, stripping them of their identity, then trying to rebuild them in the CIA's image. All for the sake of national security, naturally. Because nothing says freedom like involuntarily turning your own citizens into guinea pigs. The staggering incompetence combined with the shocking depravity is truly a sight to behold. They achieved very little in terms of practical mind control, certainly nothing like the Manchurian Candidate fantasy. What they did achieve was a lot of ruined lives, broken minds, and a legacy of profound distrust. People committed suicide, suffered permanent psychological damage, and lived out their days haunted by fragmented memories of experiments they couldn't comprehend. There were no super spies created, no zombie assassins unleashed, just a lot of traumatized nobodies, collateral damage, and a secret war nobody knew they were fighting. The existence of MK Ultra only truly came to light in the mid-1970s after a Senate committee investigation. And here's the best part. In 1973, CIA Director Richard Helms, in a moment of foresight, or perhaps panicked self-preservation, ordered the destruction of most of the program's records. So, what we know is just the tip of the goddamn iceberg, salvaged from a few surviving financial documents. Most of the horrifying details, the specific victims, the precise methods, they're all gone. Flushed down the toilet of plausible deniability. It's like finding a charred recipe for human misery, but all the ingredients and instructions are missing. The legacy of MK Ultra is a dark, festering wound on the reputation of intelligence agencies. It's a stark, unsettling reminder of what happens when fear and ambition are allowed to run wild, unchecked by ethics or morality. It proved that sometimes the greatest threats to a free society aren't lurking enemies abroad, but the very people sworn to protect it, experimenting on their own citizens in the name of security. It's a true crime story where the villains wore suits and the victims were often just unlucky enough to cross their path, or perhaps just breathed the same air as their unwitting drug-laced cocktails. And that, my friends, is a truth as disturbing as it is absolutely captivating. What a goddamn mess they made. If you enjoyed this podcast, please like and subscribe.
You know by now, got stories to tell, from the small to the grand, all under one spell. We talk about this, we laugh about that, from the strange to the bliss. Get ready to chat. It's the Binge Podcast, where everything's a blast. It's the Binge Podcast, come join us fast. By now, got stories to tell, from the small to the grand, all under one spell. We talk about this, we laugh about that, from the strange to the bliss. Get ready to chat. It's the Binge Podcast, where everything's a blast. It's the Binge Podcast, come join us fast. Where everything's a blast. It's the Binge Podcast. podcast, come join us fast. Tune in right now, got stories to tell from the small to the grand, all under one spell. We talk about this, we laugh about that, from the strange to the bliss. Get ready to chat, it's the Binge Podcast, where everything's a blast. It's the Binge Podcast, come join us fast.